Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, April 7th, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the four-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Cliff Schecter to look back at the week that was, and in fact, the past 16 hours. Also, of course, Donald Trump launches 60 cruise missiles attacking the Syrian regime after giving them a warning. So, Daddy went boom boom. And that's about it. $60, $70 million that could have gone somewhere else. Burned up. Meanwhile, in the Senate, in the wake of the Republicans causing the moon to fall into Lake Michigan, as they say, having exercised the nuclear option, have now confirmed, despite a Democratic filibuster, Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, in the White House, it's Bannon v. Kushner. And already, they have taken to the walls.
I'm going to text Joe Scarborough.
It is pretty amazing.
I don't want him on the council anymore.
Meanwhile, Republicans panicking over a Kansas special election happening this Tuesday. Of course, we are a week or so away, 2 weeks away from a special election in Georgia, one in Montana. All that and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. We were hoping to have Andy Kindler, but apparently he's doing some special podcast in Indiana, and we couldn't get him.
Weak stuff, man.
So last night, and we had spoken about this yesterday, of course, there was Donald Trump had claimed that he had had an epiphany upon seeing the video of children who were amongst the dead from a chemical attack. And we should say, let me just start with this, okay? Because we do have members of our audience who are quite convinced that this was ginned up or some type of false flag or whatnot. Obviously, sitting in Brooklyn, New York, one can never know the actual reality of just about anything. I question things that I see right here in this office, frankly, and I'm not quite sure what happens. But with that said, the Guardian paper online was the first Western media organization to visit the site of the attack. They visited and examined the warehouse and silos directly to near where the missile had landed and found nothing, according to them, but an abandoned space covered in dust and half-destroyed silos, reeking of leftover grain and animal manure. Residents said the silos had been damaged in air raids 6 months ago and had stood unused since then. That's relevant because the Russian government claimed that a missile hit a store of sarin gas. So that is off the table. They go on to write, there was no contamination zone near any building. Instead, the contamination area radiated from a hole in a road. They have a picture of that hole. Witnesses said air raids began shortly after 6:30 a.m. on Tuesday with 4 bombings around town. Initially, thought it was just another airstrike, until the first responders who arrived at the scene began falling to the ground. So it's quite clear that this was perpetrated by the Syrian government. Whether it was some type of rogue mission for whatever reason, I guess we could never know that. However, it's quite clear that the Syrians still had some supplies of chemical agent. In addition, as Michael pointed out, there have been multiple attacks that involve chlorine bombs just in the past month. Last night, I went in to do Chris Hayes' program, ostensibly to talk about the Bannon-Kushner fight. By the time I got there at 8 p.m., the news that there may be, we were operating under the belief that this was still being debated at that time. Obviously, in retrospect, since the attack was reported literally moments after 9 p.m., the decision had already been made. But I ended up going on the program for about 40 minutes on a panel that included the right-wing columnist from the Washington Post, I believe, Jennifer Rubin, who was a never-Trumper, but a very anti-Obama, dramatically pro-Mitt Romney, right-wing Republican.
And a Rubio fan.
And was he a Rubio fan? Okay. And also a guy from the Brookings Institute. Who was that again?
Oh, I think it's Shadi Ahmed.
And Politico reporter Ken Fogel. That panel essentially followed a couple of other of people that Hayes had interviewed, and the range of debate, excluding myself, ranged from we need to do this, and then there has to be a very well-developed strategy as to where to go forward with this. And ranging from that to we need to do this, and as long as it's part of a larger comprehensive strategy.
By definition, not.
Well, and so, frankly, to have the opportunity to go into a situation like that and be the lone dissenter is really, for me, the payoff of doing this for an extended period of time. Over the past couple of years, I've been an official MSNBC contributor, so I've gotten paid, not the big contributor bucks, but
Thank you for your time.
Yes. Yeah. And so the money has never been the driving force, although, a couple $100 is not insignificant to me. But to have the opportunity to go on and argue this, and it was a very eerie situation because the guy from the Brookings Institute supposedly is sort of a left of center person, and the idea that they could all describe, and I made the point that I thought, Cliff and I will talk about this, but that I made the point that, this is a president whose ratings are at 36% approval ratings, and this is an opportunity for him. And the idea that somehow, literally weeks after where he ordered a strike that killed 8 children, one of whom was an American citizen. And days after a strike that killed 200 civilians, undoubtedly dozens of them children, in Mosul, that he was so moved by these images that he did a perfect 180 degree on his policy stated days before.
Regarding Henry foreign policy.
Yeah, exactly. Which now, in retrospect, looks like the impetus for Assad to see if he could get away with chemical warfare. And the idea that this guy, was doing this because of a genuine, thoughtful change of heart of policy was absurd. And you're arguing that this guy, who they then go on to say, to defend that comment, they would say, well, this is the way he reacts. He reacts viscerally. He watched this on TV. It's perfectly believable that he had a change of heart. And I said, well, then this is the guy who watches 2 minutes of television, forgets of his involvement in the killing of children weeks earlier, and then decides on a dime that he's going to change policy 180 degrees. That's the guy who's going to come up with a very careful strategy on where this goes next. I mean, these two things are not reconcilable. And you'll recall perhaps the linchpin of why we went to war in 2003 with such broad-based support, American support, was people like Thomas Friedman, who had this notion of how everything could work out magically in Iraq, but then later said, but of course, those guys, my mistake was trusting George Bush. At the time, I thought he could execute this. Even if there were an argument that you need to just basically launch missiles into some Syrian desert to show that you're willing to do that to maintain the norms of chemical warfare, as if that warfare was somehow more lethal than the warfare that created 500,000 deaths in that civil war at this point. But even if you thought that, the idea to make an argument that it needs to be followed up with some careful strategic thinking and that it's going to be executed by the universally accepted single most incompetent person to ever sit in that office is to say that careful strategic thinking means nothing and has no implications. Anyways, I got a lot of time to express those opinions over the course of those 40 minutes. As far as I could tell, the rest of the evening went as, one could expect if one lived through the build-up to the Iraq War, which is the moment the idea of military action is introduced. People divide into, I guess, like 3 camps. One is saying there hasn't been proper process followed. That's the only dissent you hear. 2, we're just going to report this as if this is a fait accompli and bring on a series of experts who explain why this is necessary, and then into just full-on war porn, where everybody where they bring on experts who introduce us to new terms that we never heard before, and then we all have sort of some type of group masturbatory celebration over the sheer power that emanates either from our ships, our missiles, those who ordered it, on and on. So and all of which totally predictable from every network. I mean, people should not be surprised about this. Comcast owns 51% of NBC, but the other 49%, maybe I'm getting the specific numbers, but wrong. The other 49% is made by one of the largest weapons manufacturers in the world. And frankly, there's not a lot of incentive for people to go on to these programs. I mean, and dissent from the idea of bombing people. The incentive structure is set up in such a way. I mean, like, you can come on, and if you are from an advocacy group, maybe sometimes they bring those people on. And I think on MSNBC they did have one or two people like that later in the evening, is my understanding. But there's just not going to be many pundits who are going to do this. And frankly, one of the reasons, really, I wouldn't go on and do it in a different context. But frankly, the having this show be the reason why I do that stuff versus that stuff being the reason why I do that stuff sets me up with a completely different incentive structure. I don't care. And frankly, I think on Hayes' show, I'm there to do that. I think at 12 o'clock at night, he went back on, and I think they replayed some of the stuff I said because there's nobody else around to come in and do that. They're not going to screw up their, career trajectory. Fortunately, mine is, my trajectory is leveled off, has trajected already. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break and get on the phone with Cliff Schecter, see what he thinks about this. We'll be right back. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. On the phone is a person who inspired all sorts of ditties, but this is one of them.
Cliff Schecter, Libertas LLC. New media, public relations, and strategy. You want any of these services, you know who you gotta see. Cliff Schecter, LibertasLLC.com.
Hello, Cliff. What's old is new again,
Yeah, I've just sort of, I don't know, I've lost all my bearings. Where are we? What year is it? What the hell's going on? I think this is what totalitarian governments are supposed to do, right? I mean, there just gets to be a certain point where you don't even know what the hell's up and what the hell's down anymore, right?
I mean, I have no idea what, this is.
I feel like I can quote former Reaganite Bruce Bartlett, who said on Twitter, "They told me if I voted for Hillary, we'd be at war in Syria in 6 months. They were right. I voted for Hillary, and we're at war in Syria in 6 months." Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I mean, I think, look, it's quite possible. I mean, certainly, and let's make no mistake about this. Hillary Clinton was out there this afternoon or yesterday afternoon. I think it was in the afternoon, right? And she was saying she was advocating the bombing of the Syrian Air Force, which
she came out in favor of bombing. So I'm not letting her off the. Well, I mean, it's not even letting her off the hook. Versus, I just want to know, after. Somebody who maybe this makes me naive, because I don't have financial interests in what we do or don't do, but somebody who believes in good policy and believes in saving people's lives if we can, who thought we should have tried to work with the African Union and others to get involved and prevent the massacre of Rwanda. Because I very much do believe when people are being massacred, not that we don't necessarily need to go in and kill more people, but unless it's in self-defense, but we certainly should go in and try to block, if it's a straight-on genocide, we need to do what we can to get in and prevent it. I don't think we should just watch people die. At the same time, I don't understand what the point of this was. Trump told Russia, who told Syria, I don't even think anybody was there. It was like kabuki theater. And even so, let's say the bombing was going to target what I want somebody to tell me after Iraq and Libya, both of which I were against, both of which turned into shit shows as far as I'm concerned. What is the goal? What is it we're trying to accomplish, and what is it we think can be accomplished? I mean, you could argue that there was a successful intervention in Bosnia. Some would say that wasn't our place, or whatever. We can get, people on the left can debate that. But I want to know, what is it we think we can accomplish here? Can we save children's lives? How can we do that? Because I don't know any of this stuff. I just feel like we're launching some stuff, and
well,
I don't.
I mean, I think let's take the first part of that, because there are two separate things here, right? Like, what did those bombs accomplish, and what would be the long-term strategic goal? Like, can someone articulate? And because this is, I was saying before you came on that I was on Hayes last night, and I had this argument with a guy from Brookings and Jennifer Rubin, and the guy from Brookings, of course, when I I said those points and raised that that dissent. The argument was like, well, if you're one of those people who just want to sit by and do nothing and think that we shouldn't do this, it is incumbent upon you to come up with an answer on how we're going to, what we are going to do. And
it's the exact opposite, actually.
Yes, exactly. It is exactly the
bomb
opposite.
stuff. It's up to you to explain how that helps.
Yes, exactly. Because there is the idea, and this is the problem, is that the American psyche cannot accept the idea that, not that we should or shouldn't, forget about shoulds, forget about normative values, that there are some instances where we're not magic, where we cannot supersede the laws of physics, as it were, and actually stop things that we don't have the ability to control. And we simply do not have the ability to enter into this conflict with any reasonable, even remote assurance that we will achieve what our supposed objective is. I mean, this guy was talking about, degrading the Assad's forces and enhancing the moderate rebels, which maybe there are, maybe there aren't. I don't know.
I honestly hear about these. Talk about magic. We always hear about moderate rebels that I never seem to find.
But let's just assume for a moment even that there are moderate rebels. What he's talking about is that supposedly by bringing these two parties to parity, that a guy who is hell-bent in staying in power enough that he would gas his own people is going to then say, like, well, I'll go to the negotiating table and give up some stuff to you, as opposed to this is just simply going to prolong the war. I mean, it's quite clear that everybody involved in this war does not care about the deaths of the people who are fighting for them or who are being caught in the middle. So really, the only thing that we can do that will mitigate the suffering, if that's theoretically what is driving us into this, is to provide, and we could, hats off to General McCaffrey, because I saw him on last night, and he was the only one I heard who said anything like this. For $1 billion a month or a week, we could provide safety for the millions of refugees who are at least just outside the country.
See, and this is the crap that gets me really angry because, again, there used to be a sort of coherence to conservatism. You know what I mean? There used to actually be a philosophy there. It wasn't just like, what's your latest impulse and let's do it, that's why Trump is like the perfect guy for this age of conservatism. And the conservatism was, don't take on big projects, whether it's providing, jumping into universal health care, that's the way they would say it, at home, or bombing abroad because you don't know what you might unleash. And it was a philosophy that I actually disagreed with to somewhat, especially on the domestic side, because you don't tend to, when you try to give people health care, blow stuff up by mistake. So it's a little different. But at least there was sort of some coherence to not doing things too quickly without them being thought out. And I could accept that. That's a philosophy you can debate depending on. Say, well, better case for it when it comes to health care than when it comes to. But there's no philosophy here. I mean, Trump a week ago was saying, wouldn't be doing anything there. Tillerson was giving Assad a thumbs up almost. These guys are in bed with the Russians, clearly, who are big backers of Assad. So none of that stuff, makes any sense on any level. And then just the fact that, it's hilarious watching people like Sean Hannity try to, erase their tweets now from 2013, many Republicans, all of whom were like, Ted Cruz, I just can't support this, with my vote in Congress. He can, however, support it if somebody does it without a congressional authorization in a different situation with no strategy, no underlying theory behind what we're doing. Oh, and on top of that, a guy who's an effing moron as president who's clearly shown he has no character and is still making things up, like people wiretapping him and stuff like that. That's someone you're going to trust? I mean, I know people on the left, these are people, and I would call it the far left, like to have this argument that all wars are equal. They're not. All right, and I'm somebody who's very, very, as I said before, I was against Libya, I was against Iraq. Those were with different presidents of different parties. I tend to be very much against getting involved unless we have something that you can be called a clear strategy, and if it's a clear genocide with, not a civil war per se and other things, but on top of all of that, like when you try to sort of say everything is equal, it is not. A war run by Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or hell, George H.W. Bush, for that matter, i.e. a competent person who cares at least about human life, has shown that they give a crap about something other than, the tall buildings they put up, is a very different animal than trusting Trump to do anything right. I mean, the guy couldn't come home from Florida for the whole thing, right? He had to still be at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, that, it's ridiculous. I can't trust Trump we could have even if you gave me the best plan in the world come up, that smart generals came up with and a clear case of where we could do something. I'm not saying there's no way I would support it, but I'm still hesitant because we have this ADHD moron, and it's not even fair to people with ADHD. This guy has the attention span of a gnat, running things, who wants to run off and meet with people and charge people more at his damn, Southern White House. That's more important to them than being in the situation room and actually monitoring what the hell's going on.
Well, I think just what took place in terms of Syria policy over the course of the past 8 days, to me, is disqualifying enough to suggest that this guy has the ability to formulate and stick to, and the discipline to formulate even any type of long-term strategy. I mean, they literally went 180 degrees on their policy within the period of maybe 5 or 6 days. And there is every reason to believe that this chemical attack was a function of Donald Trump and Rex Tillerson saying, we stand down from the posture of just saying that we want regime change, and it's up to, let the chips fall where they may. And I think Assad basically said, oh, great. let's let the chips fall where they may.
The chips don't tend to fall in good places, at least in recent years, when we try to change regimes. Argue against the Gulf War, and I can make that argument too, but not changing the regime was a very smart move. Most people agreed and would still agree. You can't leave a vacuum in power. Guess what? ISIS, Al Qaeda, whoever, people step into it because people who are desperate and hungry will do desperate things.
But there's but I guess my point is there's also listen, Barack Obama had the policy of we want regime change in Syria. That's our stated policy preference. But
right.
We are not prepared to go in and blow up Syria for that purpose. And Donald Trump, for whatever reason, felt it necessary to move off that policy and did not seem to understand that he was communicating very much like George H. Walker Bush when he sent what was her face, April whatnot, the ambassador, I think, to Kuwait
at the time, where he said, "Yeah, it's okay if Saddam goes in. It's cool."
You basically you got a green light, do whatever you want to do.
Well, he thought they were only going to take the northern section of Kuwait from what and I'm not justifying it. I'm just making a point.
Well, but my point is that
going in everywhere and taking everything and the oil.
These things have diplomacy turns out to be a fairly nuanced thing, and
you actually have to understand language and be consistent, which is why most people in foreign policy world, when they heard Trump saying, "I'm going to be unpredictable,"
so the guy
basically, oh my God, unpredictable leads to lots of people dying.
The guy who doesn't understand this, literally on Monday, is not capable on Thursday of creating some type of long-term strategy to that follows up an air attack. So what we end up with is, and frankly, I'd rather this than the alternative is, and the alternative being, frankly, what Hillary Clinton was recommending, which would have been far more aggressive, it seems to me. But just basically some missiles shot into the desert as a way of making him feel powerful, and just, I think from his perspective, getting those 7 or 8 polling points, approval rating points that he needs to re-engage with his legislative agenda.
Right. Right.
I mean, I think...
go ahead, sorry.
Well, it's clear to me that this was just sort of an opportunism, where there was just...
Well, he warned, basically in classic Trumpian fashion, Russia knew before Congress did. So, and they told the Syrians, and the Syrians removed anything that could... there was no point to this at all. Again, whether you agree with it or not, and I haven't been shown the justification for what it would accomplish, even if he had hit when they weren't ready, so I don't agree with it until somebody shows that to me. And makes the case for why this will improve things and why people who would have died, children and others who would die from chemical attacks will now not. But this is even a step worse than that. This is theater. Is what it is. It's dropping bombs in places where there aren't anybody.
Imagine if we just said,
find part of Montana or Canada where nobody lives and drop some bombs there.
We're going to take these whatever it is, let's call it $75 to $100 million that we are spending on this attack, and to show Bashar Assad what's what. We're going to eradicate homelessness in half a dozen cities across the country. Take that, buddy.
Right, for example, or that universal health care thing. We're going to use this at least towards beginning that, because that makes no sense. Whatever. You and I will just keep talking around this because I don't think there's anywhere else to go with it. Which is, I get the impulse from good liberal people to want to help people. I have that impulse. I've supported interventions before when I've thought they've made sense. When when there is a goal that can be achieved and you can save literally people's lives from militias that are mowing them down. But I need to know what that is. Right. If I'm going to have to be convinced that my country's name and quite frankly my taxpayer money, when I watch all these poor people with their conscience clauses about abortion and birth control, but my money can be spent on blowing people up. I don't get to say no to that.
All right. Well, let's. I want to play a couple of clips from the media because I think it's really important that people get why they have to be super vigilant with this stuff because, we saw it on CNN after that State of the Union address, or it wasn't technically a State of the Union address, but a joint session of Congress, I think it was, address. And now we're seeing it again. Here is Fareed Zakaria. I mean, there are basically, these are going to be two examples of how the media will turn on a dime when it comes to this stuff. And here is Fareed Zakaria. Remember, he's talking about a missile attack onto an airbase barely used that was forewarned so that there's really no impact. A completely symbolic gesture which involved Donald Trump saying, do that, or okay, or Jared says, do whatever Jared said to Mattis, or Mattis said to Jared, do that. Here is Fareed Zakaria responding to this.
Fareed, it's day 78 of the Trump presidency. What changed last night?
I think Donald Trump became president of the United States. I think this was actually a big moment because candidate Trump had said that he would never get involved in the Syrian civil war. He told President Obama, you cannot do this without the authorization of Congress. He seemed unconcerned with global norms. President Trump recognized that the President of the United States does have to act to enforce international norms, does have to have this broader moral and political purpose. President Trump realized, as every president has for many decades now, that presidents always believe they have inherent legal authority as commander-in-chief, and they don't need to go to a pesky Congress every time they want military force.
Okay, so...
Yeah, none of that fucking happened.
Well,
okay, let's start with that. None of that.
Well...
I mean, again, like, what the fuck is... I'm sorry, I can't stop myself. What is wrong with these people? And I respect Fareed Zakaria a lot. You know what I mean? As I respected Van Jones when he came out with this stupidity a while back. Oh, he's president now because he gave a good speech or whatever that. It's like, stop making him president. Stop turning him into something. I remember they did this with George W. Bush, too, and somebody who clearly was 1,000 times more presidential than this guy. But why is changing this policy from one to the other because your advisors tell you it's the thing to do because your poll numbers are sagging, and let's be honest here, we know that has something to do with it, and you want to look tough. Why does that suddenly make him a president, and why does that suddenly make him more thoughtful? He must have thought this out strategically, unlike, let's say, Medicare, which he said he would never cut and then completely switched positions on. Why is this any different from that?
Well, first of all,
what is wrong with? There's something to do with men. I got to tell you, I'm speaking as a man here, where we've got this atavistic caveman thing in us that we see some bombs fly and we look at it like it's shiny jewelry. Ooh, look, the bombs are flying. He must be doing something. I mean, what's the other explanation here for how otherwise intelligent people like Fareed Zakaria become babbling idiots?
I have no idea. And I will say, Michael just IM, and he's like, this is the moment that, Fareed Zakaria could have been saying, like, this is the moment that he backtracked on some of the only appealing things he said during the campaign. But the fact is, the man in the past 78 days has ordered a strike in Yemen that killed 8 children plus other people, has killed 200 civilians in Mosul in the biggest civilian death attack that we've had since probably the Iraq War, has expanded...
And the Yemen thing, you said this before, but important to include this, Sam, which is the previous administration had decided not to do it because it was too risky. He was told by generals not to do it because it was too risky. He didn't listen, and we lost a Navy SEAL.
On top of which... essentially expanded the parameters in which we are to operate in both Yemen and Somalia to basically throw off the restrictions on what we can do that were put in place to protect and mitigate and limit the number of civilian deaths. So we're going to see a lot more civilian deaths over the course. We certainly saw.
He doesn't care. I mean,
but here's my point: is like, why doesn't Fareed Zakaria acknowledge that reality? I mean, why didn't the president become the president when he ordered the deaths of those that involved those 8 civilian Yemeni? Why didn't he become
the president when he came in?
Why does the guy
after
become
saying
the president just when he explodes some bombs
Right. Well, why didn't he become the president after saying he was going to give people the best health care? It's going to cover everybody, and then came in and was going to dump 20 million people off of health care. Did that make him president? I mean, the fact that he jumps from one thing to another depending on who's whispering in his ear with no ideology, he's a man that completely lacks any morality, any character, couldn't give a shit about anybody beyond his basic universe of him, his dumbass son-in-law, his daughter, and the other people that have been granted nepotism to come into his administration and get security clearance. He doesn't. I mean, I just can't stand it. I mean, when somebody proves they're a certain way their whole life, and the entire time they've been running for office and everything they've ever done, they don't suddenly change. All right? So just because there are bombs flying and they look shiny and nice and beautiful, as Brian Williams said, doesn't change the fact that based upon your system of judging, this doesn't make him suddenly an intelligent, thoughtful man. But he's the same guy he was a week ago.
Listen, even if it was, I don't care. I mean, even if it was Bernie Sanders, I mean, why in Fareed Zakaria's mind, forget about Donald Trump, forget whoever it would be, why does the person become president at that moment with the knowledge that he has already inflicted military casualties on civilians? What was this moment that he became president to pull this sort of stunt, which really is fundamentally meaningless, and which is one that he laid the groundwork for it to happen in the first place, consciously or not consciously, by basically opening the door to this. I mean, there is an illness in our culture, and it is reflected in our media, or vice versa. I'm not exactly sure where.
Dude, I mean, I hate to be. Well, I don't know what it makes me. Am I anti-man? But you don't see women reacting like this. This is a men thing.
I don't know. I saw three of them on the hour that I was on MSNBC reacting more or less that way.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't watching because I don't watch any of that crap anymore. No offense to you, Sam. You're awesome.
I understand.
But you know what? As far as I'm concerned, there are women who purposely make that their deal because they know it goes against brand and makes them, they do better. If you're an Ann Coulter, I'm not sure who you're talking about, so I don't know which women you're talking about. There are women who do that on purpose.
No, I'm talking about, ostensibly, mainstream pontificators and the former Democratic president, the presidential nominee. I mean, the Falklands.
Right, but they don't get giggly and excited. I'm saying Hillary Clinton may have come out in favor of it, and I disagree with her, or come out earlier and said, here's what we should do. She didn't call missiles beautiful, though.
Well,
she didn't say that makes
you keep
him
referring to this missiles beautiful.
The point is that there are women that may be in favor of this, but there is something about smart men that make, and I'm saying that Brian Williams and Fareed Zakaria are smart people, that makes them stupid when it comes of war, when it's like there's something primitive that we can't get past.
Well, you're referencing it. Let's play this clip now. We have Brian Williams talking to Malcolm Nance, and there is definitely a Buffy quality to this. The Buffy being that
the Vampire Slayer?
No, it is. It's a term where cops who run into people who like to buy cop gear and then just sort of walk around with black cargo pants.
All the guys I've run into who doing the gun stuff who have their own little
there's a buff quality to this. Watch here they are. Here's Brian Williams talking about the missile strike.
Malcolm, I want you to go into greater detail. We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels in the Eastern Mediterranean. I am tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen, I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons. And they are beautiful pictures of fearsome armaments making what is for them a brief flight over to this airfield. What did...
Wow. I'm hoping Malcolm Nance gets into that stuff because on foreign policy, often, or at least security policy, I've found him to be very smart. And
I think
you know,
Nance just went on and delivered the the facts of the situation. I don't think
he
was
didn't get all caught
as
up in it. I mean, just I'm
poetic.
surprised again. I think I said this to you earlier, so when we talked, so I already ruined my joke. But I'm surprised that Brian Williams didn't tell a tale of how he was riding one of those into town. You know, he was on top of one of those missiles, like waving his cowboy hat, man. And then he just came back because Brian Williams does amazing things, boys and girls. You know, what do you say to that? How can somebody have that reaction?
I got to admit, I got a little teary-eyed at just the sheer beauty and the power that those possessed.
Oh, me too.
And I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to claim I didn't get a little bit of a tingle on my leg.
That's right. Like the tingle, you know, that Rich Lowry got when he saw Sarah Palin on TV. Do you remember that tingle that went up his leg? It was that kind of a thing.
There's a lot of tingles.
Knowing Rich Lowry, he probably got a tingle from the bombs, too. Yeah, you know, like, again, to find this kind of thing beautiful, I mean, you know, I don't know why we're, like, replacing old lights with LEDs. Maybe we should just light up rooms by launching bombs and missiles. I mean, they'll provide light, and they'll be beautiful.
So beautiful.
It's just so stupid, and, you know, I'm shocked, actually, that somebody who's supposed to know better reacts that way. But
all right, well,
again,
here's
you know what?
That's why I wanted to play this stuff, because people should be prepared not to be shocked. People should be prepared to sort of like start to contemplate and to understand how important it is, because we may at this point be, you know, things may have settled down. Congress, and this is the interesting dynamic that I noticed between a Democratic president and a Republican president. Had Hillary Clinton done this, Congress, the Republicans would not have been behind her. There would have been a massive outcry. She would have been constrained in some way. Now,
can you imagine, like, again, kind of like when they went after Bill Clinton when he launched those to try to hit bin Laden, and it was all about Monica Lewinsky. If her poll numbers were where Trump's are now, they'd be you know.
Oh, yeah, there would be investigations.
You know,
there would be
for
investigations.
wagging the dog.
There would be investigations. Now, fortunately, I think there is an awareness amongst a broad base of the Congress that Donald Trump is a mentally challenged individual, and that and so there seems to be broad-based calls for him to come to Congress if there's anything further that happens. But of course, like, look, and hopefully nothing further. There is no response, essentially, military response from Syria, although I don't know, like, what would the logic of their response be at this point, or a response by Russia. And I think to a certain extent, you know, there was a good argument by, is it McCall, the former Soviet ambassador, McFaul, who said, look, you know, Putin probably has reason to be upset about this too, because he was in the room when the Syrians signed this deal. And he, you know, this is...
Well, there is that whole conspiracy theory going around, and I mean, at this point, it's not as much of a conspiracy theory as it's a theory, and you don't have to buy into it. But, you know, which is being that Trump and Putin are buddies, that this was all an exercise in shoring up Trump's flagging poll numbers.
Well, I don't know if it has anything to do with Putin, but
Assad does what he does. Putin, you know,
I would
maybe Putin has him do it and says, okay, now you can launch weapons and attack fields that have nobody in them and look tough at home.
Listen, I think you don't need Putin in this equation for someone to raise that idea. I mean, they've made goddamn movies about it.
No,
I mean, this is like, you know, this is politics 101, right? I mean, this is what you do.
I'm just saying Putin can benefit from this in ways too. If the worse Trump's numbers get, you know, Congress perhaps falls out of Republican hands, or Trump is, you know, his own people turn on him, or whatever happens, Putin gets more exposed for what things that we all suspect and are pretty sure he actually did when it came to our election. So there's a reason for him to want to keep his guy from crapping out here.
Regardless, I think it's quite possible that to me, you know, it is far more. It seems to me far more plausible that Donald Trump realized I've got basically a very strong potential for a totally failed administration with an increasing chance that the Democrats take over one house of Congress, and God forbid for Trump's purposes that it's the House, because then investigations start in earnest. And I've got to do something quickly to get my poll numbers up. The idea that this shows up and he has the opportunity, and I'm not saying that he contemplated all this, but the idea that somebody in the White House didn't give him this advice seems to stretch the imagination. And so, all right, well, the final point being that people should really be conscious, because under any presidency, the idea of something like this happening, but people should be aware of just how desperate the press is below their confrontation with Trump to normalize this guy so that they can get back to normal things. So that, and the best way to do it is to say that he's gotten presidential every time he ties his shoes, essentially.
And it's like more comfortable world,
exactly,
where they can just be sort of relaxed elites and not have to be outraged all the time. It's easier.
It is easier. I mean, listen, I would love it. I mean, in my mind, I'm hoping that Trump decides, like, I'm just going to support expanding Social Security.
We all hope for these things. That's different than like people that are determined for them to happen so much that they'll say they're happening even if they aren't.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's the difference is that I would love for Trump to become the best, to become a fantastic president and progressive and smart and all these things. That would be great. And I wouldn't have to say, I don't enjoy being outraged and being annoyed and thinking that my president's an embarrassment and well, maybe already a war criminal, certainly heading in that direction. But I also will not sugarcoat it if when he proves not to be any of the things I want him to be. The problem with our press is, and you won't either, the problem is our press will, many of them, because they just get tired of being outraged, and it's not their natural way to be.
All right, so let's just briefly talk about the Supreme Court. I mean, this went down like one could have predicted, I don't know, 9 months ago. I'm just thinking.
Just think about if the Democrats, again, to say quickly, I know you got to go, but think about if they had completely gotten rid of the filibuster instead of the agreement they came up with, and when it became clear that what Republicans, and that really would have been when Obama's administration started. They were bad enough before that, but with how McConnell treated Obama, when, I mean, just think about if the Democrats thought of just saying, forget about it. We're not, we're not going to do this, and they eliminated it. And I mean, there's a lot of great policy that could have gotten through, right? There's a public option potentially that could have gotten through. There's cap and trade. There's all sorts of things, but we've sort of allowed this fake impediment that the side and control could get rid of at any time. We've allowed that to stop us from doing all sorts of things that were necessary to do,
I will
they
say
did what
this.
they do, which
Look,
is they ignored it the minute it was inconvenient for them, which is what they were always going to do.
I mean, look, let's just give just an overview here. In 2000, I think it was 3 or 5, we had the McConnell threatening to pull this act at that time. There was a gang of 8 that made a deal so that essentially.
Yeah, I mean, back then Frist was in control, I believe, but McConnell was the whip, and it's the same. Yeah, I mean, he was driving the bus, really.
And so, and then of course we had Harry Reid get rid of the filibuster for lower judges, or I should say judges, federal judges, as opposed to Supreme Court justices and presidential appointees. So now the only thing we have left in terms of the filibuster is legislation. I don't think the Republicans are going to get rid of that anytime soon, frankly. But I do. It would not surprise me that if we ever get to a point, 2 years, 4 years, obviously 2 years is not as relevant because you don't have a president to sign it. But if we ever get to full Democratic control, to see that filibuster gone, because I think at that point there's going to be enough understanding amongst the Democratic politicians that the Republicans they are off the rails. And
I would hope there is this. I think the Democratic coalition has gotten better and better. I mean, the fact that we only lost 3 senators on the vote, 4 on the filibuster, because of Bennett being from Colorado and all of that. You think about where we would have expected to be on something like this, even as recently as a couple of years ago. So it's getting much better. They're understanding more and more that keeping your part of winning elections and representing your base is also standing up for things you believe in. And so I hope we'll get there. Because again, there's a whole bunch of legislation that we needed that would be helping things right now. Think about if we had a public option. Think about if we had cap and trade. Think about if we had passed background checks.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, Cliff.
And
but here's the thing I worry about. Okay, I'm trying to think of, just off the top of my head, and I hadn't contemplated this before. This is something obviously I got to do a little work on. But where are we going to get? Well, I guess it's possible. You're talking about 3 or 4 more senators. I would say we need. Let's say we're going to lose 3 or 4 of these senators would not do this if we were in the majority, right? We know the 3 right there, and then maybe add 1 or 2 more.
Right.
Where are we going to get these extra 5 or 6 senators in the states that are out there where there's potential that are going to be in blue enough states that they would do this? It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult.
You're talking about in 18 right now.
In 18, in 20, down the road, maybe 22, 24.
Well, 20 things are going to change because there's going to be a lot of seats on the. But you're right, in 18, it's going to be very difficult.
Well, what states would they be? Like Pennsylvania, maybe? Would it be like Wisconsin? Like where?
Wait, you're saying where will we get senators from who'd be willing to support getting rid of the filibuster?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. You're right. I mean, I think that's a difficult thing that again, it goes into the calculation. I'm not talking about what I think, what will definitely happen. These are Democrats, and we always, we always sort of cater to norms that have already been blown up. We don't realize they've been blown up 5 years later. We sit there and watch the other side do all manner of ridiculous things like the Merrick Garland thing. And then, again, we had this discussion on this show. Had President Obama looked at that as what it was, which was blowing up norms in an unprecedented way, there's that little maneuver. All I rely on is what David Waldman says about being able to use that parliamentary trick to get Garland in the court. Whether that is in reality would have worked or not, I don't know. What I do know is he could have used the recess and at least put Garland on for a year, and that's a year of better decisions being made. And we would not do it because, oh, God forbid, we actually go stand up to the people that are wrecking norms by wrecking them ourselves. So you're right. I don't know. Where do those guys come from? Yeah, I mean, maybe they're from Pennsylvania. You just don't know. I mean, look, Sherrod Brown's from Ohio here, and he's still one of the most progressive senators in there.
Right.
You sometimes get people who have the courage, even if they're in swing states or lean Republican states. What everyone wants to say about Claire McCaskill, she still stood up to the Gorsuch thing, and as she stood up on background checks and a number of other things where she's been, and where a couple of these other guys, were too wimpy to do it, Heitkamp and others. So it depends on the individual senators. I will just say that the letting minority rule these days will always hurt us, as it does with the Electoral College, as it does with 2 senators from each of these states, whether it's South Dakota or California. We are hurt much more by that because we are in the majority on virtually everything, and usually we have large majorities, and they're stopping the works. That is what the Republican Party does. And so to assume that they're not going to do this, if some legislative proposal, a 10-year enormous tax cut or something, and they've got something like 58 votes for it, and they can't quite get to 60, to assume they won't blow it up for that, I wouldn't count on it. Whereas when we took over in 08, after they pulled that nuclear option crap in 05 to make sure they got on, like Janice Brown and a bunch of nutcases to get them on the courts who otherwise would never have gotten there, when they did that, our response should have been when we ran everything and had almost 60 senators, and we're going to eventually in 2008 to just get rid of this damn thing because it doesn't help us in the long run. But instead, we'll sit around and we'll always wait till the Republicans breach that norm till we respond. And I just think that's a crazy way to govern. And now what has it gotten us? It's gotten us a guy who's a right-wing nut who seems on regulation to be to the right of Scalia, who is now going to be on the court for 40 years. That's what it's gotten us with Gorsuch.
Cliffy, always a pleasure. On vacation next week, so we will talk in 2 weeks. But happy Pesach if you
you too.
If you celebrate. And
I don't celebrate, but I like to think that I do.
Well,
so I still appreciate that.
Happy thinking about Pesach to you.
There you go.
Sir. All right.
You happy Pesach, and really for everybody else, have a hell of a week.
Talk to you in 2 weeks.
All right, take care.
All right, folks. We will take a break, head into the fun half. A couple of housekeeping notes. One is, if you like coffee and have always wanted to try justcoffee.coop, now is the time. 30% off. Free shipping and 30% off. Use the coupon code MRSPRING17. MR for Majority Report. Spring for the season that April represents. 17 for the year of our Lord.
Oh, it's very big of you to admit that.
Yeah. I'm saying specifically my Lord.
Oh, yours.
Mine.
You think you have your own personal Lord.
Yeah, and I always refer to me in the royal we.
Ooh, all
the
right.
royal hour.
Someone is definitely not getting enough sleep.
Yeah, I know. I'm exhausted.
Exhausted,
Also,
God. Why is thou forsaking me?
Oh, Jesus. Also, tomorrow we're very excited to see people who are driving in from, it appears to be, all different parts of the country and even all different parts of the world, like Canada. Very, very excited to see all our listeners tomorrow. We're going to give you some special stuff to walk away with. Everyone is going to get a lock of Michael's hair.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Why not everybody's?
What?
How about everybody's?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just going to shave
Whatever.
your head during the show. I didn't tell you about that? Also, next week we are going on vacation to collectively celebrate Passover. We're going to have 5 nights of Seders together as a family. Kelly is not here at the moment. She's at a YouTube conference. But
She doesn't feel comfortable with all the Jew time.
no, she doesn't. But she's got to attend. We will have new content for you every single day of the week, ladies and gentlemen. And Matt's going to pull some deep archive stuff from the old Majority Report. Fun stuff, right? Yeah, he's convinced. I'm sold. Super
High energy, Matt.
Super excited about it. I can
Sometimes you
tell.
really are the Jeb Bush of the board. There are times.
And so if you celebrate Passover, happy Passover. If you celebrate Easter, which apparently is coming up, everybody's just like, happy Pesach, happy Pesach. The war on Easter is one of the least recovered wars that we have. And but if you celebrate Easter, then happy Easter, I guess. Hope your bunny comes out of the cave or whatever happens on that day. We're going to take a quick break. Head into the fun half, 646-257-3920. Oh, wait, do we have a Jimmy Reefer Cake song? Wait, what?
I'll check.
I didn't notice one.
Oh. Yeah, we do. And I
Do
think
we?
that this is addressed to me.
Where
I'm
is
going to
it?
need to get this restraining order that people have been inviting
Wait,
me
when
to
is
get.
it? What's the date of it?
Came in yesterday.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay, send it to...
It is sent to Matt.
All right, we'll play the Jimmy Reefer Cake song.
I think I know what my answer to the premise of this song is going to be.
Is it about Reefer?
I'm sure it's in there.
It's called Debate Me.
Debate me. What could that mean?
Yes, good afternoon. It's the J-Man here. I'd like to start out with a clip from Chris Leparco, the king of earned media.
Get Michael Brooks to debate Jimmy Reefer Cakes. That's up to Michael Brooks, man. I like Michael Brooks. He's a good person. He's funny. And Jimmy Reefer Cakes, I like him too. He's a good guy, and he's funny also.
He says Jill Stein is the devil, libertarians are pure evil, Russia blah blah blah, different tracks. When I sing about legal weed, he doesn't understand the need. I'm trying hard not to insult him back. My Twitter followers see I put out an earnest plea for Michael Brooks to join me in debate. My side, Hillary Clinton sucks, weed should be free, and everything will be great. Join me in the free weed thought experiment. I guarantee that you can prove no detriment. Come on my podcast, debate me. There's no need for you to hate me. I promise that you'll find my debate style's gonna blow your friggin' mind.
Is that it?
That was fantastic.
No.
Look. I think that's too. I think you're being too rash. One
You
can
would like-
only
yeah.
imagine
Yeah.
how much a closed circuit
Jimmy has
broadcast
been,
of
Jimmy
a
has
debate
been,
between you two.
Jimmy has been asking for this for years at this point.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe
There's just at times there's a little bit of like a level of persistence which gets a little disturbing.
Well, I'll say this. I'm just going to put this out there. If Jimmy Reefercake has a big birthday coming up, I don't know, like a milestone birthday, I'll tell you what would be a great gift by Mrs. Jimmy Reefercake would be to fly you in to Maine to a birthday party. To have the debate with Jimmy.
So here's the thing with Jimmy though. Is
And I'm sure there's a number.
I don't know what
that you would
yes,
be willing to do.
if
that
you
for.
give me if for $20,000 all expenses paid, I'll go into Maine and debate.
Or maybe
Jimmy.
you just get paid in weed. Just like 20, like a huge.
Now I can't do that because you put it out on air, you idiot.
Maine, I
Yeah.
believe it's decriminalized. I think
I
it's
might
actually
be traveling
recreationally
across
legal.
state lines with it, but no.
You're just gonna sell it
I
there.
think, just gonna go to Bangor.
Yeah, and then you
Just
go in and
unload a couple of
yeah,
pounds.
and that's how you impregnate all the white girls. I think
Yeah.
in Maine is really what you do. According
Yeah,
to
but I don't
Governor
like I don't
LePage.
like white girls. But the thing of it is I don't actually know. Jimmy is debating a version of me that exists in his head. Like I don't actually think weed should be illegal. Like the only part of me that thinks weed sometimes I've considered maybe there's a serious debate there is after I hear Jimmy songs sometimes. Then I think we do need then I'm like maybe this should be a controlled substance. But I think weed should be illegal. I think Russia's commits human rights violations.
Okay, listen. I just heard Jimmy's song. I don't have to hear your whole backtracking off.
Well, I have a couple of different tracks.
2 tracks, right? Exactly. All right, folks. We're going to take a quick break, and we will take your phone calls and IMs. We have some sound to play in the fun half. Don't forget, it's your membership that makes this show possible. Join themajorityreport.com. If you buy stuff from Amazon or Jet, go to majorityreportkickback.com. We'll be right back after this. All right, folks, we are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. It is the fun half. I got an email. I got to praise you like I should. Theolo GOP. I've been watching avidly, Chromecasting your YouTube live cast every day. You are all magnificent. The Majority Report has become my home port in this total goat fuck of a shitstorm of a fake presidency. Tammy in Texas. Thank you, Tammy.
Good swearing.
Good swearing there. Really do. That was actually one of the logos that we had in contention. A home port in a total goat fuck of a shitstorm of a fake presidency. That would actually be a good. That might be a good tag
good
for
alternate
the show, right? I mean, if we want to do something like that, that might be worthwhile. All right. Yeah, let's do this. Let's start with this. Obviously, a lot of attention being paid now to the Daddy Make Boom Boom in the Desert play by Donald Trump. But what will have perhaps more salience over the next 20 or 30 years will be the nuclear option, which was pulled by Mitch McConnell today in the Senate, allowing Republicans to break a perfectly rule-abiding Democratic filibuster of a Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch. Here is how it went down in the Senate.
Madam President.
The Majority Leader.
Our Democratic colleagues have done something today that is unprecedented in the history of the Senate. Unfortunately, it has brought us to this point. We need to restore the norms and traditions of the Senate and get past this unprecedented partisan filibuster. Therefore, I raise a point of order that the vote on cloture under the precedent set on November 21st, 2013 is a majority vote on all nominations.
The ayes are 48, the nays are 52. The decision of the chair does not stand as the judgment of the Senate.
Okay, so there was a cut there, and I'll explain what happened. When McConnell does that as the Senate Majority Leader, having put someone else in the chair, when he made that ruling, the chair said, I'm sorry, that's against the Senate rules. And then what happened is McConnell filed an appeal to the ruling of the chair, and then there was a vote, a majority vote won that appeal, and Orrin Hatch presided over that vote and announced that the ruling of the chair did not stand, and that is when the filibuster went away. Now, you could see how sad and morose Mitch McConnell was, that he had to do this in light of this unprecedented partisan move by the Democrats to use the completely consistent with the rules of the Senate filibuster. It's unbelievable for a man like that who has given so much to that institution to see that type of partisanship, I'm sure. In fact, I remember, I'm so old, what he was saying in August of 2016 at a rally in Fancy Farm, I think it was, in Kentucky.
One of my proudest moments is when I looked at Barack Obama in the eye and I said, Mr. President, you will not fill this Supreme Court vacancy. So, do we want Jim Gray and Hillary Clinton shaping the Supreme Court? No. Do we want Jim Gray and Hillary Clinton propping up Obamacare? No.
There you go. Mitch McConnell talking about one of the proudest moments he's ever had is when I completely broke all tradition and history in the Senate and refused to give even a hearing to that president who, to be fair to McConnell, broke all precedent by being black and president in this country. And so there he is, the saga of Mitch McConnell. Now, ladies and gentlemen,
the whole idea of having to say President Obama, pretty upsetting for some people.
Pretty upsetting for some people. Now, I want to give a one of those warnings, right, that you see sometimes, like when you watch The Walking Dead.
You doing a trigger warning now?
Trigger warning.
You're cucking our show even more.
No. There are some people who do not understand why I will not let go of the debate that I had with an individual back in, I don't know, when was this? In August of 2016, so around that same time, August, September. And it was a 30-minute debate, 40-minute debate. I had called Jimmy Dore before, or I sent him an email, said, hey, I saw a clip you did about the Supreme Court and your analysis about how Donald Trump would be better for progressives. And I want to have you on, or I want to give you the opportunity to come on and defend it, because I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to talk about it, because I think your ideas are, frankly, really confused and you're misinforming your audience. And I'm friends with Jimmy, and so I wanted to give him the opportunity to come on. He wrote back, no, go ahead, rip me a new one. And I began to, and apparently he was listening, and so he called in. So we had the 30-minute debate. This is a segment in it. And really, I want to reiterate, I don't have a problem with Jimmy Dore in California voting for Jill Stein, and that was never what it was about. I think that voting for Jill Stein was a dumb thing to do, but I don't even, look, people can vote the way they want. I think it's a mistake. I think it's a misunderstanding of what the vote's for. But what I really took exception to, what Jimmy was doing, and I kept repeating this to him, was his fantastical notion of politics and trying to make an argument about things that were absolutely fantastical. And that's my polite way of saying just stupid and moronic. And so here is a segment of that where I am telling Jimmy that under a Trump presidency with a Republican-controlled Senate, they're going to be able to seat one, maybe two, maybe three, I don't know, possibly four Supreme Court justices changing the court for years. And Jimmy thinks this idea is ludicrous. And in fact, that it's somehow, well, let's listen to this segment now that 78 days into the Trump presidency, we have seen what happened today. And you're basically not providing any context for the plan that you have, that this is going to long-term work out well for people. I mean, just in the past 5 months, we've seen the importance of having even a split Supreme Court in terms of enfranchising hundreds of thousands of voters, in terms of maintaining the existence of public sector unions. I mean,
I agree. Sam, I agree with you on this. It's very important. The Supreme Court is very, so that's a straw man. I don't think it's not important. I think it is very important. And I laid out my strategy for how the Democrats could fight. Now, you laid out a strategy for how the Democrats could roll over. And that's just the difference between me and you. And I think yours is complacent. It's establishment.
How do you know on day one?
Thinking.
How do you know on day one,
It's
Mitch
fear.
McConnell? Wait a second. How do you know on day one, Mitch McConnell won't change the rules to get rid of the filibuster for Supreme Court justices?
Hey, how do you know on the first day Hillary won't bomb Syria with a nuclear weapon?
Well, all right.
How do you know?
I also don't know that the moon won't fall into the Lake Michigan.
Right.
But you know what? I mean, honestly, Jimmy, to make those analogies, I think is indicative, and people can judge for themselves. People can judge for themselves. If people think that it is so far-fetched that Mitch McConnell will take the next step and get rid of filibusters or change the threshold for filibusters for Supreme Court nominees so that Donald Trump can get his nominee through is the same as Hillary Clinton sending a nuclear weapon to Syria. If people genuinely think the chances of those are the same, they can assess that.
So every crazy, fearful scenario you can concoct in your fear-riddled brain is accurate and makes sense, right? That to you. Every crazy, every time I say something, you move the goalposts once again. What if Mitch McConnell does this? What if there's 2 Supreme Court justices?
The point
What if
is
there's
the
this? What if
risk
there's that?
assessment
The
that you're
point is the
making
Democrats
doesn't
are
actually
violent.
include any awareness of how politics work, Jimmy.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it does, Sam. And I just gave you my position, and you can't really refute it except you come up with some new fear scenario. So the scenario is the Democrats can't filibuster. Right now, the Republicans aren't even giving the guy a hearing. So the fact is that can happen, but you want to roll over. It's a weak, it's spineless Democrat.
The Republicans are not filibustering now. They're just not bringing up a nomination. They're not filibustering.
Without batting an eye. Without batting an eye, they won't fill that seat. And I'm saying the Democrats could do the same thing. And you're saying they won't.
Look at the polling of the Democrats. Okay. There's Jimmy, both wrong in his prognostication that my assumption that Mitch McConnell could very, very easily change the filibuster is a fear-ridden idea coming from my fear-ridden brain. And then he goes on to say the Democrats could just as easily deny Donald Trump's pick a hearing, not understanding at all what was even going on there, not even probably bothering to read a single newspaper article on it, where the most basic of understanding of how the Senate works. They were just simply not holding hearings. They weren't filibustering anything because they controlled the Senate. So when I point that out, and I do it because, look, if Jimmy was just some random guy not on the biggest platform of news on YouTube, then it would be irrelevant. But he's not. He's out there actively miseducating people, misinforming people about stuff. And so, I don't know. Until, I guess, Trump nukes Syria, I think I'm probably done. But with playing clips from that debate, although I'm not 100% sure.
Don't commit to promises you can't keep, buddy.
Maybe my fear-riddled brain can't even imagine the moon falling into Lake Michigan and me playing another clip.
I mean, there's a lot of ironies because obviously I think you're right on the merits, but he had some insights. Like, you do have a fear-riddled brain.
That's true.
So he came through with his own insight.
I think he also, to be fair, said that I was better looking at him.
No, I think he actually said... well, he said both things.
He said both.
Actually,
That's
the core
the
of that
thing. Yeah,
debate.
I should have
covered a lot of
that.
lanes.
Should have called him on that.
That was totally.
He was really flip-flopping.
I think we need to stop supporting fucking corporate Democrats. Vote for Jill Stein.
Did I lose my sound sheet now? You've got to be kidding.
Vote for Jill Stein and have a fucking Green Party. I oppose fracking.
There you go. All right, we'll go through.
Did you find it or did you lose it?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Did GE? Somebody just IM me said that GE sold all their shares in. I didn't know that. I thought they just sold their majority stake. I was not aware of that. Calling from a 775 area code. Who's this?
Hey, it's Rob in Reno.
Rob, what's happening? Got to be quick today because we got to get out of here fast.
Hey,
I'm going to cover.
I'd like to talk to you about my public schools.
Please.
So, hello?
Yeah? Hello?
Yeah, you said wait.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, hello?
Hello?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to talk about my public schools.
Please. Please do.
Hello? I didn't do anything.
All right, your phone's breaking up. Sorry. Calling from a 786 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, how's it going, man? I haven't called in a while. It's Tony from Miami, man.
Hey, Tony. How's it going?
Good, man. I just wanted to make two comments and stuff like that. The Jimmy Dore segment you just played, I watched it when you guys had that debate when he called in and stuff like that. I was watching it that day, and the whole time it was kind of cringy. But to me, after a while, I feel like some of his views, since after the primaries and stuff like that with Bernie, I think they've gotten, for me personally, I feel they've gotten a little, I don't know, anarchist feeling. The whole kind of like blow up the system way that he's kind of thinking with, if Trump wins, the Democrats are waking up and fight back and blah, blah, blah. But you were right when you said it, and you said it a long time ago that, what's the chances that, Mitch McConnell, wouldn't destroy the filibuster rule for Supreme Court nominee. But hey, nobody listened then, and sometimes they still don't listen now. Also, my last thing, I'm gonna let you go. Today, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm in a school here in Miami. I go to an animation school at Miami-Dade College, and today I arrived at school, and there was a great number of security personnel walking around my campus. But this isn't the first time that security personnel showed up, and when I noticed, it was Secret Service. Lo and behold, today we had a great visit from the ever infamous in the progressive circles, Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos showed up at my school today.
Wow.
And and had absolutely nothing to say to the students when they showed her, their projects and their progress in the field of animation, stuff like that. My advisor was there in the room when Betsy DeVos showed up with the students, and my advisor looked at me. She told me, yeah, Betsy DeVos was here. She just left right now. And I was like, oh wow. She goes, that lady's face had a blank stare. Like she had no idea what the hell she was doing there, even at my school meeting with these kids. And then the kids are showing her projects. I could hear them from outside, like clapping and applauding. After they would show her a project or something, and she looked at them, and my advisor told me that the only thing she had to say was, wow, you guys are doing something very interesting here. And she walks out the room and then leaves the campus. Like, that's about it.
Well, it's important that she's banking visits to places where people go to school. And that's at least a start, right? I mean, although I got to say, the actual start that Betsy DeVos has taken is more akin to this. And I'm going to let you go, and I'll just, it'll remind me of this story. I appreciate the call, buddy.
No problem, man.
Talk to you
soon.
Right,
and, yep. Talk to you, man.
Right.
Bye-bye.
So here is a story. I think I touched on this in the past, but I want to just make sure that I covered this. There's more than 500,000 people who've signed up for a federal program that promises to repay their remaining student loans after they work in 10 years of a public service job. So if you have a student loan, you go into a public service job, whether it's the government, social work, there's a couple others. Whatever you have left of your student loan, the government will pick up the tab. In a legal filing submitted about a week and a half ago, the Education Department suggested that borrowers could not rely on the program's administrator to say accurately whether they qualify for debt forgiveness. So the thousands of approval letters that have been sent by the administrator, the Federal Loan Servicing, are not binding and can be rescinded at any time. So many people who are reaching the end of their 10-year commitment, who had anticipated for years that after those 10 years, their debts would be taken care of, are now left wondering if, in fact, they qualify. 4 borrowers in the American Bar Association have filed suit in a United States District Court, Washington, against the department. The plaintiffs held jobs that they were initially told qualified them for debt forgiveness, only to have that decision reversed with no evident way to appeal. The suit seeks to have their eligibility for the forgiveness program restored. I mean, this is just the beginning. The full-on screwing of students, of debtors, of public schools, just the beginning. But Betsy DeVos, at least she's going around and checking out some places. All right, let's try that 775 area code one more time. 775. Who's there?
Sam.
Tell me about your public
Rob
school.
Marino.
Tell me about your public school, Rob.
Hey, so to me, our public schools are our greatest institution. And it's not just a bunch of buildings with good people in it. It's a thing that takes us all from one time and place in our lives to usually a better one. So to me, it's like a vehicle also. So it's like the greatest cruise liner that's ever been made. And it's something we can all take out together, like out on the oceans. But look out, here come pirates. And they run their pirate boats into us and get us leaking. And we're like, what the fuck? Why'd you run your boats into us? And they're like, we don't see it that way. You've been sinking for years. We're here to help. And we're like, sinking? Help? And right at that moment, a bunch of dummies come around, and they're like, sinking? We've said we've been sinking for years. Are those pirate ships? They're like, no. Don't go with those dummies. They ran their boats into us in the first place. And they're like, I don't think so. By the transitive property of economic morality, a good pirate is a good, successful person, too. So I'm going. And these dummies take their kids and they go with the pirates. Now, obviously, pirates can't sail, and that's why they're pirates. And their toilets don't work, and they got no money. And these dummies ask us for help, and they're like, help us, send money. And we're like, why don't you just come back? And they're like, this is better, way better, but you just keep sending money. And every time we send money, the pirates just put gas in their boats and run them right back into us. So finally, it gets so bad that all their kids are swimming with homosexual sharks, and the dudes are all getting cucked by Commodore Mandela. Now, here's the thing.
All right.
We're all watching this going, we're at the dock. We never left port. We're in 10 feet of water. We're not sinking. That's how I feel about my public schools.
All right. Appreciate the call, Rob. That was...
What the fuck are you talking about, Rob? Now, no one questions the entrepreneurial talents of pirates. A little fucking off base.
Calling from a 509 area code. Who's this? Where
Ray
you calling
fucking
from?
gun.
Good afternoon, Sam. It's the J-Man from San Antonio.
This is not John from San Antonio.
Sam, I'm wondering if you've seen the latest Nate Silver poll. His methodology is dirtier than an Atlantic City stripper poll.
Wow, that is
Sam.
actually a pretty good John. That's a pretty good John.
Christy Noem, Congresswoman from South Dakota, won her last race by just over 29 points, but she's looking at some interesting polling right now. In 2018, there's a real chance the Democrats will pull off the ultimate sneak attack, like that time Gaius Baltar led the Cylons against the human colonies in Battlestar Galactica.
I remember that.
And believe me, Christy Noem is no Commander William Adama. Now, Sammy,
So say we all.
You're always so formal with me. You always call me John from San Antonio, but I want you to call me by my stripper name. Call me Johnny Sweetcakes, Sammy. Come on, call me Johnny Sweetcakes. I want to hear you say it, Sam.
All right. Yeah, good job. Wow. You've been practicing that? That was actually a pretty good impersonation.
That was perfect.
Oh, boy. Let's not do the... we don't. The Miller time is just too long. It's 6 minutes long.
It was just...
We got to wait for Kindler. We got to wait for Kindler.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's a little unfair.
We can backload this. We could do we could have a whole day where we just have Kindler and Dennis Miller.
I got to ask Kindler about the Josh Zepps thing.
Well, I heard he got it. Well, save it. No,
well, of course. It's a tease.
Folks, as we speak, the president is with Xi Jinping in Mar-a-Lago. Probably
chopsticks for everyone.
Probably,
all right, we've got chopsticks.
Probably lamenting the fact, like, I'm sorry, I wanted to play golf, but now I have to pretend like I care about the bombs I just sent. And Alex Jones is telling us that this could lead to something far more nefarious. Here it is.
The world's in the greatest danger ever, and the Democratic Party and the Republican establishment are lined up, showing weakness in the face of all this garbage, and that's why the Communist Chinese, the biggest mass murderers in history, don't respect us. Because the Democratic Party and snot-nosed people like the Intel deputy head, Adam Schiff over there, are scumbags. You think having all those fairies and pansies up there with little chicken necks running around attacking our president all day makes us look strong? It makes us look weak. Doesn't matter we've got 10-to-1 nuclear weapons against China. Those crazy people have proven they'll go to war. They're completely psycho like Kim Jong-un on power trips. So if China keeps pushing, the only option is full commitment to hit China preemptively. That's the only way to survive this nuclear war, and Trump knows it. And Russia has already been told they better stand down. The United States is preparing to nuke China. So get ready, assholes. All of you wanted it, you're going to get it. Turn that off. God damn it. Excuse me. Go on.
That was pretty good, right? I mean, guys, should we do another take? Or should we do another take on that?
It's so transparent that they planned that whole turn that off and I'm going to swear after the camera's off thing.
Well, not only that, I mean, this is, right, like, the guy is just thinking, like, I could probably do this for, like, 3 or 4 more years. We could play out the China thing for 3 or 4 more years, and then I'm just going to retire. So I'm grooming a Billy over there and Kevin and Janet. And I'll recede back. And, because we've run out of things. Although, here's the other thing we could do. When it becomes apparent that we're not going to nuke China, this is what we'll do. It's because of aliens that have come down here, and the real problem is they've come back. So Adam Schiff from the Intel Committee is actually a secret lizard who was planted here by aliens 35 years ago. No, 35 years ago. And then what happened is they've come back and they forestalled the attack on China. You pansy asses. Because of the way that you've just invited these aliens into this world. By just walking around saying, if aliens come, we're going to be friendly. Because of all the movies that Hollywood is putting out. Suggesting we could talk to these people. But we are in an Independence Day situation. All right, turn off the camera.
This is the fucking moment. The chinks are moving. They're going to fucking bomb us. But guess what? We bombed them first. All right, how was that, everybody? Let's go take a lap, okay? Is that my broker on the phone? God damn it.
Epish. With all the white helmets talk about without mention of what their solution is, I expect Brooks to toe the Brookings Institute guys line in favor of our dear leader's hard on the sleeve gunslinging. Extremely glad he didn't, because I've got a lot of respect for Mike's insight. In regard to Russia, you just had Masha Gessen on the show. Maybe critics missed that before claiming you weren't woke enough to be a Russophobe. MR's crew's the best, hands down, consistently measured thinking and commitment to democratic principles is a rare combination. Burr told Meck, Senator Bennett is the biggest cuck in Washington, and I will see him unseated if it's the last goddamn thing I do. I swear it. Senator Nighthorse Campbell was better, and no, I'm not joking. At least old Ben had the decency to switch party he voted with instead of remaining a Democrat. At least he made nice jewelry. Bennett makes, I don't know, charter schools? Electoral jihad on Bennett. Political crusade. Policy holy world. This motherfucker needs to go. Cat. Sam, Malcolm Nance's reply to Brian Williams' beautiful weapons comment was not beautiful for the victims, Brian. Oh, yeah. Good.
He said that?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's good.
MR member, Sam, if someone purchases a show membership for $13 million, would that be called the Bill O'Reilly level membership? We should add that.
Call you whatever it wants, or call it whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, we could.
Oh, that's O'Reilly level.
Tommy D, I've been a listener since the very beginning, back during the Bush era, and I have to say, I really feel like the quality of the show has gone downhill as Michael's role has become more prominent. It's not that he doesn't add value at times, but the emphasis on impressions, many of which get old very quickly, his frequent interruptions trying to get a laugh, and basically just adding just his whole ego-aggrandizing vibe has lowered the. Let him have his one day a week, and maybe have him step back a bit further on the other days. I kept
Ooh.
waiting for the punchline there.
No, there's no punchline. That was a pure
Now,
attack.
To be fair, well, I guess this is back in September, but he also then said back in September of 2016, character for Mike, Buddhist Gary Johnson.
It's always those people. They have
They turn
bizarre
so quickly.
fixations. Yeah.
Dolink, appreciated your sanity on Hayes last night for an extended period. Be nice to hear your perspective by media who can't seem to get it. Art, core brand proposition for the imminent realignment. Plutocracy is the problem. Democracy is the answer. Ilmek, I'd always pick Michael over Jimmy, but reefer across the belly. I'm laughing hard already. Badass Society, Reefer Cake song prediction. Straw man, weed, Debbie Wasserman, Schultz, weed, hypocrisy, straw man. Nick from Manitoba. Sam, thank you for your conversation with Mr. Schecter today. I feel like it much needed. Try and make sense of things now. Also, guess who I heard on the CBC, Canadian Broadcast Corporation Day? Andy Kindler. He was on a pop culture show called Q, which he was brought in to talk about Don Rickles. It was just great listening to Andy burst into laughter as we tell some of the racist jokes that supposedly shouldn't be acceptable today. And who would have thought Canadian Public Radio was more important than being on MR, Sam, huh? Stay sweet, MR Beauties. Wow.
It's all over media.
Call us and deuce it. I really want that stupid racist genius comedian caller to be the new Doug. Kike the Cuck. I think we owe Alex Jones and Breitbart an apology. They were insistent that if Hillary got more votes, we'd have a president under investigation by the FBI, appointing a bunch of Goldman Sachs people to the cabinet while bombing the crap out of Syria on the right-wing conspiracy hacks for playing the long game. Neff, I'm sad I don't live back up there anymore to be able to make it. Happy Passover. Saul's first time doing the 4 questions. I don't think he's going to do it this year. Daddy's Ing, we might have expected. A lot of the mainstream pundits are upset at the filibuster being overruled, but they blame Democratic senators. Someday progressives will be blamed for not having prevented catastrophic climate change. John in San Antonio has made it big now. Kevin 11720. I saw a picture of the crater. It looked like something a strong man could dig with a shovel and pick in about 20 minutes. The hole cost $2 million. Jewish superhero. Guess that Syrian no-fly zone to preempt any chemical attacks turned out to be a good idea after all. Andy Pants. Wow, never thought Brian Williams would have a greater reason to be ashamed of himself than lying as a reporter, but quoting Leonard Cohen to engage in jingoism is nauseating. Toyd Flawed. Hey, Sam, I'm a new member from New Brunswick, Canada. Love the show. It's the first podcast I've ever paid for. Well, then you know what? You're going to get one of these. One question about yesterday's show. What the hell is Kelly's deal with Canada? What's not to like? Chris Burdick. The only reason Trump went with Make America Great Again was because Make America a goat fuck of a shitstorm of a fake presidency was too big to fit on a trucker hat. Edgewater. Sam, you were great last night in Hayes, holding down your own from the Peter Brady Bunch square of the split screen. At one point, you raised your eyebrows so high on something said by Jennifer Rubin, they crossed over into the Brookings Institute square above you. Check the tape. I will concede that I was very consciously making expressions of like, you've got to believe, you've got to be I was very consciously trying to show just utter disbelief at what I was hearing. Flint, what if Putin just manipulated this hothead to take the first step towards reuniting the Cold War? Their chemical attack explanation was clearly bogus, and they were already framing this unilateral action as a violation of international law. They didn't violate it on a regular basis. However, they can have their own narrative. The U.S. did this, so we annexed here and there because Putin's eyes I don't think so. A simple man. Yes, my Carhartts and sweater vest came just in time for the show tomorrow. Neff Hart. Random question. Does a shiksa refer to a Christian woman or a non-Jewish women in general? Non-Jewish women in general. Also, Michael should debate Jimmy. Joseph Ballin. You know, I could gloat right now, but I'm going too busy to try to prevent World War III to care. Notice how people like me and Jimmy Dore predicted that this was a false flag that would lead to military conflict with Assad. What? Did it come out that this was a false flag?
No.
Tulsi Gabbard, 2020, is the last hope for the survival of the human race as a species.
Dude,
I see one more.
you need help.
More anti-Gabbard comment on this show. I'm losing my shit bigly.
You need help.
There will be more.
Definitely be more.
Also, Shillery in the Podesta emails, she would have appointed a Republican to SCOTUS. No. One person floated that idea, and everyone knocked it down in those emails. Here's a fun clip from Steve Carell on cuckolding. I can't play it on this computer, so. I don't have this computer hooked up. Ojik, hi Sam, good luck on Saturday. Sorry I can't be there. Would like to meet you and the gang and other MR supporters. Thank you. Chicago Don, there have been a few questions about the term cuck. For many, it's a great honor. I served with the cucks. I know cucks. Cuck's a friend of mine. They'd never do it, but the next Democratic president should pack the court, even if the Dorons don't understand the importance. Oh, I like that term. Bare hands, I genuinely felt sad seeing how young you looked 8 months ago. Really? It's the summer. In the summer, I'll look better. DX Fool, hi folks, and happy holidays. You realize that when Tiffany Trump is in her late 50s and looking forward to the corporate version of Medicare that will be around in the future, Daddy's influence on the courts will still be there long after Daddy is gone. Yes, I do. Ryan from Ohio, I'd be very surprised if Jimmy Dore admits he was wrong. We would sooner see the moon fall into Lake Michigan. Militant apathy. Jimmy Dore is a fucking retarded, intellectually lazy. He's so delicate that he blocked me on Twitter so he can go choke himself. Brandman, I'm quite sure he has muted me. Everyone goes to the live Sam Seder show should get a Sam Seder bundle pack, including such wonders like the Black Diamond Award-winning masterpiece, Who's the Caboose? There should be also a raffle for a seat during Pesach, just in case Kelly isn't into all the Jewy stuff. Ian in Baltimore, GE sold all their shares in MSNBC. It was a few years later they had an option to sell the rest. I didn't know that. Be silly. Sam, you nailed it with a reference to war porn. Did you catch the CNN relentless missile launch video coverage last night? They had less than a minute of actual footage playing in a continuous loop. Oh, God. A Square. I missed the haze last night, but when I started watching MSNBC, McCaffrey was the first one I saw and fell off the chair. Not only did he mention $1 billion a day in costs with this incursion, he touched on the refugee issue. Maybe his defense consulting side gig ended, but I was grateful he said it. I felt last night it was deja vu all over again, 2002. Yeah, me too. Ram it down their throats. Dems should be beating this the right as a whole over the head with Ryan Trump care on literally every issue. The mill is the most salient, easily digestible distillation of the Republican project. Wow, we got a lot of them. Fragonard. Looking forward to the live show Saturday. Will the MR crew be sticking around to accept a round of drinks afterward? I'll be there with Christo, and he's buying. Here's the plan. And I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but there is a show that follows ours. I can't remember what the name of it is. It's a podcast. It's supposed to be pretty good. So we do an hour, then they do an hour. And there is a bar in the front of the Bell House. And I will hang out there till at least an hour after, maybe more, after the second show is done so that people don't have to leave in the middle of the program. And I will encourage Michael and Matt and Kelly to do the same.
I've got things to do. Sorry.
I don't want to step on my
Of course.
on what I'm going to be saying tomorrow. So that's the plan right now. So, Sutra, if the closest parallel to Clinton bombing Sudan and Afghanistan, that works so well. Your coverage is keeping me sane. I'm a relatively new member. Can I get a shofar? You can indeed. Petros, thank up for providing clarity on the issue. Rest up. You're meeting Mindy tomorrow. If anyone deserved to be demonetized, it's Alex. Oh, tonight I'm actually going to be doing Charlemagne's Common Sense show on MTV2 again, which I think live streams at like 11:30 p.m. tonight. And Bonara, Sam was the sanest person on Hayes' panel last night. His refusal to play along with the Happy War Theater may end your invitations. No, I don't. Like I say, I'm quite sure and confident that's why I'm there. Did you hear Uday thinks Pizzagate guy should get a Pulitzer for exposing that Susan Rice followed normal surveillance review procedures at NSA? Mitch says, yes, I did. Arg. I fear the media fawning over our middle strike will make our drones jealous. I hope they don't retaliate. All right, let's take a couple of more calls here. Got to be quick. 847. Calling from an 847. I'm not going to get to all of you, folks. 847 area code. Who's this?
It's Josh from Chicago.
Hi, Josh. What's on your mind?
I saw a little masterpiece on Amazon the other day called The Big Fall.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
And my favorite line was when you said that you had a heart murmur.
Oh, you actually watched it?
I did.
And what did I say? I had a heart murmur? I mean, this was
yes,
20. It was at least 20 years ago. So I just remember I played a very Jewy version of myself, which is
yourself?
Which was,
what are you talking about?
I just did an inflated version of myself.
Yes. Yes, you did.
Well, I appreciate I'm glad you enjoyed it, Josh.
Anyways, my question is, it's about the filibuster that Merkley did.
Yeah.
And it's a two-part question. First, do you think this sort of filibuster will? Because I've liked Jeff Merkley ever since he endorsed Bernie, and I sort of did research on him. Do you think it will sort of bring him to the level of sort of Bernie when he did the filibuster in 2010 or 2011, the 8-hour one? And the second is, did his filibuster sort of make you rethink your position on Merrick Garland and sort of the value of a centrist on the Supreme Court and not a political ideologue?
Well, I don't think that I don't think that Merkley is going. I think there's a threshold. I mean, the guy's not hugely charismatic, but I think he's going to get more well known. I think he's the type of guy who could be the right person's VP pick. It seems to me. I hope he gets more prominence, but until they control the Senate, none of those guys are going to be fully national figures, I think. And what do you what are you saying was my position in terms of Garland? I would have much rather Obama picked an ideologue.
Okay. I mean, Merkley's sort of point was that if you want a political advocate or you want to be one, you should run for office, and that there is a sort of value to having someone who more, I guess, is more centrist, who's more, I guess, isn't a political advocate or an ideologue, and isn't just, I don't know, bringing their politics to the court as much as, I mean,
Listen,
I'd still rather
think,
him pick a more liberal, but
I think, frankly, my opinion of justices is that they always bring that baggage there, and there are some that have a higher reverence for things like precedent than others. And there are some who at least will make the more transparent argument about the way they see the Constitution. Okay, and from that you can glean these things. So, I mean, no, I would have preferred a more liberal justice than Merrick Garland. I mean, frankly, although, and I've said this before, Merrick Garland's appointment would have been the first that would have moved the court to the the left as opposed to the right. Okay? Or as opposed to keeping it where it was. Since the early 70s. And because his seat was occupied by Scalia, that seat would have been a more reliably to the left vote. And so, with that said, I just think also politically speaking, it was a mistake to appoint Garland by Obama. But so no, the short answer is no, it didn't change my opinion. Appreciate the call. Let's go to let's see. Calling from a 203 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, it's Adam from Oregon.
Adam, what's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to beat a dead horse and talk about how I think we're kind of missing the point on Jimmy.
Okay.
I was listening recently to TYT. They've got an old school show, and it was just Steve-O and Ben. And Ben has basically had a long-term version of exactly the same argument that you guys have had. And he's had a long-term real, friendship with Jimmy. And so they were kind of trying to puzzle through what had happened and that the chill in kind of the relationship that Ben was feeling between him and Jimmy. And Steve, who considers himself a really close friend of Jimmy's, kind of directly explained that Jimmy's super sensitive about his intellect and that basically Ben telling him he's wrong, not even calling out his smarts or anything, just telling him, I disagree with you, you're wrong, you don't have facts there, kind of set him in a place where he wasn't even able to converse about it. And that he basically, I had forgotten how angry he got at you in the interview, but that's basically all he's capable of once you call him out on that level. And I don't know where that leaves us, but it just feels like we're playing on an entirely different playing field, trying to argue, I don't know, logic or politics or whatever, when it's just pure emotion. I don't want to be a psychiatrist or whatever, but I don't know how else to get through to anyone who's coming from that side.
Yeah, here's my feeling on that is that I had a perfectly I knew Jimmy. I had a perfectly friendly relationship with him, but I didn't know him very well at all. I attempted in that debate to convince Jimmy, but it became quite clear afterwards when he went on to Twitter and continued those line of arguments and had said he would invite me on the show and then actually didn't and made some lame excuse as to why he couldn't have me on the show or had delayed. It occurred to me that you know what, the idea that this is about his personal feelings, which I think also became clear to me in that debate, is even more disturbing to me. I don't care about convincing Jimmy at this point. I care about showing people whose audiences overlap. And I know that we do have people whose the audience overlaps. I care about showing them that this guy understand what he is saying something prescriptive. And even, frankly, when he's just reporting stuff, he's very sloppy about it, that he's full of crap. So I'm not interested in convincing him anymore. I'm interested in making it clear that he's a poor source of information.
Yeah, I want to just thank you for kind of the fact that I don't know, there was a while there where you were basically saying the facts will change, they'll come around, it'll be fine, they'll kind of come crawling back and realize how much they screwed up. And I think it's just really important to do exactly what you're doing and to continue to make the argument that he's just making that. He's calling the entire thing, the chemical attack, a false flag with no evidence whatsoever. He's just kind of reaching for anything. And right, I agree. He can't be convinced.
Is he actually calling it a false flag? Is he really?
Oh, he did 2 videos, a 2-part video on it. Yeah. And not equivocating, not, hey, we should think about this, but a 2-part video that's going all over the Bernie or Bust subreddits and everything, and it's getting passed around. And he's got a real following among that group. They're
very big following. Look, here's the other thing. At one point, the Young Turks have to make a decision if they want to provide a platform for this stuff. I honestly believe that. And you know, I have a, I am part of the, there's a word for it on YouTube. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm part of their network. And, and it is, I mean, I don't think, frankly, that obviously it doesn't impact me or what I'm doing here, but I'm not the one giving a platform to Jimmy. They are. And I think at one point it should become uncomfortable, I think, for them. Because if you're going to do this, why not just provide a platform for, you know, for Alex Jones? I mean, if you're not going to care about the how grounded in actual evidence your arguments are, you know, because it's, you know, an opinion journalism. It's also news, but it's opinion journalism. If you're not going to care and it's just going to be about the clicks, you know, how does that make you different really than the corporate media? I mean, the corporate media has one thing that's driven by ratings, but, you know, I don't know. I think there's, you know, I think it's going to be a dilemma for some people at one point. Appreciate the phone call. I hung up. I'm in a midstream. Sorry about that, buddy. Calling from an 847 area code. I'm going to have to take two more calls and that's it. One more call and that's it. Yeah, 847. Who's this?
Hey, this is Gabe from Chicago.
Gabe, what's on your mind?
Hey, man, just to piggyback on the last caller, I just wanted to talk about Jimmy. And before I say what I'm going to say, let me just say that I, by and large, think you're probably right in this debate. But just so you know, it's going to sound like I'm making his point for him. But I think that, like, when you argue with Jimmy about his position, he falls into the same trap that a lot of like libertarians or conservatives fall into, which is that he's arguing a position that, right or wrong, requires a certain level of social breakdown. And he doesn't want to make that argument because it sounds bad. And so you're never going to be able to approach him like honestly, or I guess he's never going to approach you honestly, because he's going to avoid the thing he wants to say, which is like, people are going to die. But like his point is like that eventually things will come around. And I think that there is historical evidence that in situations like we have today, that that is possible. And at this point, like if you guys talk about the minutia of his argument, where he gets sidetracked by like how like the practice of what he wants to do is going to affect today, it becomes a bad argument. He tries to defend things that sound indefensible.
All right, let me ask you this.
As it bears out, yeah.
Well, you're saying the broader argument that he's making that he can't make full-throatedly is that we need to break some eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah.
And of course, those breaking of the eggs are things like people need to lose their health care. People need to have real deprivation. People need to die.
Yeah.
So that people get so mad, we'll have a revolution. And I would like to hear, so we know, at least in terms of this country, right? When has that happened? That happened after the closest thing we have to that is the Great Depression. And so if the argument is that you are imagining he is making that he cannot articulate, that we need to get to greater than 25% unemployment with rampant malnutrition across the country and broad-based deprivation. And remember, at that time, it was a little bit touch and go. And certainly, I would say, there was far more grounding and a far stronger left, because you had a lot of people who had just come from countries with a lot more of a sort of a socialist and union, stronger union tradition coming at that time. So I think that there is very scant evidence, frankly, for the argument that people, when they are suffering great deprivation, will there'll be some type of revolution. And I don't know if you're talking about like an armed revolution that you think he's involved with, that he's proposing, but the fact that none of this stuff is thought out, and it really isn't.
Yeah.
It's really just people are going to hate Trump. Then things will enter a magic box that the magic will happen and good things will follow. Yeah, that's exactly the argument that they said about why we should drop bombs on Syria. Because then with the magic strategy after that, good things will happen after that. And I mean, if you think about it, it really is sort of a similar argument, right? Like we got to do something. We can't just sort of plod along and grind it out. I just think that there's very little evidence actually for, even if he did make that full-throated argument, that argument is legitimate. I also think
I don't know, just to the Great Depression. I mean, go back to the French Revolution if you need to. There is historical evidence that the people will rise up if everyone is literally suffering.
Okay, if everybody in this country is literally suffering, it's conceivable that the people will rise up in an armed revolution. And that was pretty bloody. I mean, that was a pretty bloody revolution. I tend to think that that's far less likely here. But I mean, heck, if we're going to do that, let's just have a civil war and fire on people. And I don't know how long it's going to take to have this bloody revolution, but I think it's absurd. I think it's an absurd idea.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I agree, and I think it's that there's a problematic situation when you have two straight cis white men having this discussion about suffering and where the limitations of suffering are
exactly
in this
because
country. But
neither one of us,
there's problems on both sides.
And neither one of us are going to suffer much, and in that revolution, theoretically, right? And so yeah, I think his argument is a joke. And of course, he's saying like, the revolution, according to him, is just electing a better Democrat in 2020. Who that is and how that person gets there, I don't know. And the damage that takes place between now and then, whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think. And I could tell you something. I could tell you that I heard the exact same argument in 2000. The exact same argument. The exact same.
Yeah.
And in fact, at that time, I voted for, it was a vote swap. To be fair, I was in New York, and I didn't necessarily advocate for it, but I voted for Ralph Nader. And so I have some very far more tangible evidence, short term, in the United States of America, that theory does not work out.
Well, there's no evidence that the Ralph Nader actually affected the vote in Florida.
I mean, there's plenty of evidence that he did.
No, because I remember reading a report that a significant number of people that voted for Ralph Nader were actually generally Republican voters.
That were generally Republican voters? I had not seen that. But even, I mean, look, even if, I mean, you're talking about that votes that came down to hundreds of people. I mean, of course he did. Of course, just him. I mean, voter suppression was a far greater factor there, frankly, than anything else. And frankly, Democrats crossing over to vote for Bush was also probably a bigger factor. But I'm saying the argument that having there's no difference between these two candidates, and that having George Bush for 4 years is going to snap things back for the Democrats was clearly a failed argument, whether or not Nader impacted that election or not. The argument itself is what I'm attacking, and the argument doesn't have merit, at least if you look at like evidence. But I appreciate the call. All right, one more phone call, and then a couple IMs, and then we're out of here. Give me a number, Michael.
1.
They all have 1 as a prefix.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was out. 5. 6.
I got it. Calling from a 512 area code. Who's this?
Tammy in Texas.
Tammy, how are you? We gotta be quick.
I'm good. I am going to be really fast. I'm going to totally switch gears. I'm going to do a little Obamacare here. If everybody already knows this, ignore it. The thing about Obamacare that nobody talks about is it includes free over-the-counter everything if your doctor wants it for you, whether it's NSAIDs, whether it's your Neosporins, whether it's your smoking cessation, whatever it is. If you're going grocery shopping and going through the pharmacy with OTCs that you need, check the formulary of your plan. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act means you get that stuff for free. Your doctor calls it in, you pick it up at the pharmacy, and it's zero copay. I didn't know this until I got Obamacare this year, and the amount of money that I'm saving just on stuff that a tube of Neosporin is what, $9? $9 I don't pay anymore. I don't even know that people know that that's a right.
I did not know that.
Use it.
I did not know that at all.
You had a hurt finger the other day, right?
Yeah.
Let's say your doctor told you, I need you to treat this with a Neosporin every night. I need you to change the gauze and bandages every day. I need you to take NSAIDs for the pain. She calls those 3 things into your pharmacy. You go there, they hand you a bag, you walk away.
What is this about a girl doctor? What? I'm joking. Tammy, thank you so much. I didn't know that. I'm not on the ACA. I get it.
No, it's not just for people on the exchanges. Sam, the whole point of Obamacare is the rights belong to everybody. I buy it on the exchange. It doesn't matter whether you do or don't.
I'm going to check
Just
that right
check
now.
your insurance company formulary for the OTCs that they list. Maybe they don't cover Neosporin. Maybe they cover polysporin.
Right. Great. People should do
But
that
it's
right
for
now.
everybody.
Tammy, thank you so much.
It's for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's a great. That is a great call. All right, folks. We're going to take a couple IMs, then we got to get out of here really quick. Oh, okay. Matt.
L.
L indeed. Lawyer Matthew. Indy Mike driving me nuts with his Trump drivel. Yes, I know. I gotta get that off my home phone, my home email. It's driving me nuts too. Go ahead. B. I'm caught in a Indy Mike argument on.
Oh, don't pretend you don't love it.
Well, there's times I do, but then I realize bullfrogs. Watch the oil. This is a fake war that will kill real people to accomplish nothing but further enriching PNAC types and corrupt leaders like Putin. More chlorine bombs dropped in Syria today. Richard Spencer tweeted, Tulsi Gabbard 2020 trumped this morning. I'm going to go with Mike. After nuked filibuster and just writing in to say F you, Jimmy Dore. I'm glad you feel good about your vote, F-wad. Avant. Used to listen to Jimmy Dore every week, but stopped last year after the shit he was giving Frank Conniff because he was a Hillary supporter. And then Frank finally stopped calling in each week. I couldn't support his burn it all down approach. Matt.
D.
Dragon Slayer. Now that Colbert has joined the cuck train with his TCM segment, will your core brand proposition change to be ahead of mainstream cucks? What's TCM segment?
I have no idea.
Turner Classic Movies.
He does a TCM segment now?
No, I don't think so. All right, go ahead, Matt. Michael.
F.
It could have something to do with cucks. Fart face. What do your farts smell like? Like farts. Michael, you want a second one for that?
E.
E fart face. I'm joking. And Bonora. Was that call a dream? I don't know what call that was.
Probably the pirate ship one.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah. Matt.
M.
Hey, I just saw one. Mitch Kramer Sam, is it time to start talking about Supreme Court limit? It's term limits at the Supreme Court. People born today will live to 120 or longer, maybe even forever with technology that's coming soon.
Term limits are popular with people.
I think the Supreme Court, there's an argument for like an 18-year Supreme Court. Somebody told me, maybe it was my neighbor who told me about a system that was devised so that that you spread them out so that each new president, if they had 4 years, would get like 1 or 2 picks. If they had 8 years, would get like 4 picks or 3 picks or something like that. Michael.
H.
Homer 3D. Brian Williams is waiting for another war so he can make up a new trapped under fire situation to get him back in prime time. Cecil Hardboner. Reefer cake debate style. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. Legalize weed. Matt, one more round.
K.
K. Give me another one.
C.
Cuckleberry Finn. Michael on 4-5. No one, not Trump, wants to escalate militarily engagement in Syria. That is very clear. Spawn on analysis there. Well, the guy did turn 180 degrees. I mean,
there you go.
I don't think he did at that time. Slim 56 from your very long time listener, Susan. Hi, Sam and crew. Haven't listened live lately, but wanted to check in and say, see you tomorrow. Oh, great. Michael.
M.
Marvin J. If Mitch McConnell ever has a stroke, I hope his doctor reassures him his brain cells can invoke closure without undergoing procedure. Cheers, Marvin from Brooklyn. All right, folks, in the final I am of the week and before vacation will be, I'm just going to take the one in order, Alex McKinnon. The bottom line is that Jimmy Dore figured he could have the best of both worlds. He could have a batshit theory with absolutely no thought put into it and appeal to his audience and not actually have it come true because he didn't think Clinton would lose either. I think that's probably right. And he's very bad about getting questioned on things. All right, folks. See you live in a week or tomorrow, live and live. Bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive.